Hey guys. Um, so I am not better, but I didn't get any worse. So we're gonna get through this last lesson. I'm sorry, this last chapter. That has several lessons. Let me see how many. Um, let me have to go back. So this one has 7. We did this one most recently, so this one should be pretty cool. Here we go. ¿Cómo se llama usted? Llamarse. How would you say your name is you or you call yourself formally? Um, I'm gonna have to read this again. That gave me a headache. Llamarse is a reflexive verb. This means that the subject of the sentence is performing an action on themselves. Okay, I got that part. As in, I call myself. I'm calling myself. I think another example would be, um, um, I don't know. I wonder what would be another example, or is this the only example of a reflexive verb? Give me 1 second, y'all. I know I want to move through this quickly, but what are examples? Let me make sure I'm sharing this. Oh my goodness, I'm not. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry, y'all. I was not sharing my screen. Um, okay. Mm, hmm. Save. Okay. So my screen is being shared. Now we're just looking up um examples of a reflective verb. Of reflective. Is it reflective verb or is it a reflective pronoun in Spanish? Oh, this is why I didn't know. Okay. So examples of a reflective verb, it looks like exists in Spanish, and on here it says Spanish and French. I'm sure there are probably Other reflexive verbs. I'm sure there are other languages, but it's coming up as a Spanish and French rule. So if you're not familiar with it and you're an English speaker, it's okay. Um, if you do speak Spanish, and you've never heard of it, it's one of those things. We have it in our language in English, where this gets into the grammar and very technical reading and writing and comprehension of the English of the language. And so everyday people wouldn't know these things. They may use them. They may even know how to correct uh, eh, word reflexive verbs that are probably used incorrectly or maybe not. But these are just one of those like really technical things that unless you study the language, um, unless you study the language or you're self-taught and studying the language, or went to school or something, you just wouldn't know this rule. Uh, I had to learn a lot when I got my degree in professional writing and a minor in English. There were many things, like I still mess up on some things. There were many rules and structures, and formulas for sentences that I did not know were the correct or incorrect way until I decided to study the language as a I guess a professional, or a um I guess you would call an expert in the field of the language. They often use okay. So reflective verbs describe actions where the subject does something to or for themselves. They often use reflective pronouns like myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves, plural. Examples include he taught himself to play guitar. So himself is the reflective verb. So taught is the verb, and oneself is the reflective verb. So um wouldn't it be considered like a reflective pronoun then? But anyway, the pronoun is, I guess, referencing the verb that is done to the individual's self. Okay? She washed herself and they enjoyed themselves. I call myself. So there's the verb, and it sounds like there will always be a verb right before the reflexive verb. I hope that helps. It's just one of those little things. Um, okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so this you can tell that llamarse is a reflective verb because it ends with the reflective pronoun se. Say would be like, I guess, he, remember say is supposed to be he, she, I think in they, or maybe just he or she. Pay attention to the reflective pronoun because it will change depending on who is performing the action. For example, to say my name is, literally I call myself. There goes the action to call, and oneself. I would say me llamo. Um, to say your name is, or you call yourself, to a peer or friend, you would say te llamas. Remember, ese mi amigo, ese is also known as ese te llamas, and the ese at the end. Now, if I told you that se is the reflective pronoun you use with he, what? Se is a reflective pronoun on its own. Okay. Se with he, she, and you. You formal. There we go. He, she, you formal. How would you say your name is, or you call yourself formally? So it would be llamo, right? You call yourself llamo.
Okay, now try to say to call oneself.
Llamarse.
Llamarse.
Llamarse. That makes so much sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, put it in the chat and why it doesn't make sense. Maybe I can help. If not, if I don't know, I'll do my best. If you get it, wonderful.
The formal way to say you call yourself is usted se llama.
Usted se llama. Usted, which is formal for you. Se, which they said was formal for yourself. Se, and then llama, to call, right? Llama. Ucha.
Did you notice that
Se.
from the end of the verb
Llamarse.
moved to the front when we said
Usted se llama.
Llamarse. They took the se off of llamarse. I call myself. Moved it to the front when we said you usted se llama.
What's the formal way to say you call yourself?
Usted se llama. Now that I don't get. Usted se llama.
Usted se llama.
Usted se llama.
Okay, now try to say to call oneself.
Llamarse.
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 What's the formal way to say you call yourself?
Usted se llama.
Usted se llama. Try to say how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo? Now, let's say the literal translation of how do you call yourself, which can be used in a formal setting to say, what is your name?
¿Cómo se llamarse? Or ¿cómo usted se llama? ¿Cómo se llama?
¿Cómo se llama usted?
¿Cómo se llama usted? Okay. So, ¿cómo? What? Se llama. That would be your name. Name. You call yourself. Se llama usted. Your. Formal for you. ¿Cómo se llama usted? What name for yourself? What name is called for you? Something like that, I guess. ¿Cómo se llama usted?
Did you say,
¿Cómo usted se llama?
good guess? However, personal pronouns like
Usted.
etc. can either come at the beginning or the end of the sentence. So you can say,
¿Usted cómo se llama?
or
¿Cómo se llama usted?
in many countries in Latin America, people are very friendly towards foreigners. Don't be surprised if they approach you to say hi and ask questions about where you are from and what you're doing in their country. In an informal setting, you would say, te llamas, which means you call yourself.
Informal. Te llamas. Te, yourself. You call. Te llamas.
There's an informal way to say, you call yourself. What is it?
Te llamas.
Te llamas.
Now, try to figure out how to say, what is your name? In an informal situation.
Informal. ¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Now, let's learn, she calls herself. Ready?
Ella se llama.
Ella se
Let's hear it
llama.
again.
Ella se llama.
Ella se llama. Ella se llama. She herself. Excuse me. She herself is called. That's how I'm gonna say it. Ella se llama.
Okay, now try to say, she calls herself.
Ella se llama.
Ella se llama.
Now, how do you think you would say, what is her name?
¿Cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama?
¿Cómo se llama ella?
Ella. ¿Cómo se llama ella?
Notice how
Se llama.
can be used to refer to he, she, or the formal you. This is similar to the use of
Está.
and many other verbs. Now, can you figure out the best way to say, he calls himself?
Se llama él.
Él se llama.
Él se llama. Okay.
For this next slide, remember that in Spanish, when the person you are referring to can be understood from the context of the conversation, it is not necessary to use the pronoun. Based on what you already know, how would you say, what is his name?
¿Cómo se llama él?
¿Cómo se llama?
Ugh, come on. I'm so confused. Didn't they just add first ella at the end?
There's an informal way to say, you call yourself. What is it?
You call yourself, llamarse?
Te llamas.
Te llamas. Dang it. Te llamas. You call yourself te llamas.
Okay, now try to say, she calls herself.
Se llamas ella.
Ella se llama.
Ugh. Ella se llama. Okay, we probably gonna have to revisit this chapter next weekend.
Do you remember how to say, what is her name?
¿Qué se llama? ¿Qué se llama ella? ¿Qué ella se llama?
¿Cómo se llama ella?
Llama ella. That's what I'm getting confused. ¿Cómo se llama ella?
Remember this? Say, he calls himself.
Se llama. Él se llama.
Él se llama.
Él se llama.
How do you say, what is his name?
¿Qué llama él?
¿Cómo se llama?
¿Cómo se llama? Ay, Dios mío. Oh. This one is difficult. I might have to definitely revisit this one.
The translation of
Me llamo Tom.
is, my name is Tom. However, you are literally saying, I call myself Tom. Here is how you would say, I call myself.
Me llamo.
Me llamo.
Let's hear you say, I call myself.
Me llamo.
Me llamo.
Me llamo.
Here's a challenge. Try to say, my name is Tom. Or the literal translation, I call myself Tom.
Me llamo Tom.
Me llamo Tom.
So far, so good. Can you figure out how to say, her name is Maria?
Ella llama María.
Ella se llama María.
Ella se llama María.
María
Is one of the most common names in Spanish. It is a Catholic name that makes reference to the Virgin Mary. The use of biblical names is very common in Spanish-speaking countries. For example, a common male name is,
Jesús.
which means Jesus. Now, can you figure out the best way to say, his name is Carlos?
Él se llama Carlos.
Él se llama Carlos.
Él se llama Carlos.
Let's hear you say, they.
Ellos.
Ellos.
Based on what you've learned so far, you can figure out how to say, they call themselves.
Ellos llamar, ellos son llamas. Ellos son llamas.
Ellos se llaman.
Se me llaman, okay. Ellos se llaman.
Did you say,
Ellos se llama.
this is almost correct. However, similar to how verbs change their ending to agree with the subject of the sentence, they must also agree with the subject in number, that is, singular or plural. This is why
Se llama.
change to
Se llaman.
to create the plural form of.
Llamarse.
Good job so far! Now, think of the way to say, their names are Carlos and Maria.
Son ellos.
Se llaman Carlos y María.
Oh, sorry, y'all. Se llaman Carlos y María. Their names are Carlos and Maria. Se llaman, yan, plural. They, se llaman Carlos y María. Se would be for their. Llaman is also their name. Their name. They call themselves llaman. I'm trying to figure out why all this is just se llaman. Okay. Se llaman Carlos y María.
Other popular male names in Spanish are
Pedro, Juan,
and,
José.
which also have biblical origins. For females,
Guadalupe, Claudia,
and
Laura.
are among the most common names. Now try and say, I am, for permanent states of being.
Soy.
Soy.
Now, how do you think you would say, I'm John?
Soy. Juan. How you say John? Soy John.
Soy John.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say, I'm not Maria. My name is Juana.
I'm not. No soy. Soy no María. No soy María. Me llamo Juana.
No soy María. Me llamo Juana.
No soy María. Me llamo Juana.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, Hi, my name is Tom, and I'm from the United States.
Hi, my name is Tom, and I'm from the United States. Hola, me llamo Tom y soy de Estados Unidos.
Hola, me llamo Tom y soy de los Estados Unidos.
Now try and say, their names are Carlos and Maria.
Soy llaman Carlos y María.
Se llaman Carlos y
llaman.
María.
Se llaman.
Let's see if you can say, "Hi, my name is Tom, and I'm from the United States."
Hola, me llamo Tom y soy de Estados Unidos, los Estados Unidos.
Hola, me llamo Tom y soy de los Estados Unidos.
Hola, me llamo Tom y soy de los Estados Unidos.
How do you say, "Her name is Maria"?
Um, se llama María.
Ella se llama María.
Ella se llama María.
Now, how do you say, "His name is Carlos"?
Se llama Carlos.
Él se llama Carlos.
Él se llama Carlos.
Nice. Now practice saying, "They call themselves."
Llaman, se llaman,
Ellos se llaman.
ellos se llaman.
When you say,
Ella es mi hermana.
you are saying, "This is my sister," but it's literally translated as, "She is my sister."
Ella es mi hermana. Ella es mi hermana.
How do you say, "to be" for permanent states of being?
Ser,
Ser.
Remember that
Ser.
is used to talk about permanent states or things that don't normally change, like your name or your country of origin.
Soy María.
I'm Maria, or
Soy de México.
I'm from Mexico. In a formal setting, how would you say, "You are" for permanent states of being?
ser, se,
Es.
es. Es.
Listen carefully.
Mi.
Means my. Let's hear that one more time.
Mi.
Mi.
Do you remember how to say my?
Mi.
Mi.
To say sister, you would say
Hermana.
Hermana.
Now try and say sister.
Hermana.
Hermana.
Do you remember how to say my?
Mi.
Mi.
Now try and say sister.
Hermana.
Hermana.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say my sister?
Mi hermana.
Mi hermana.
In Spanish, it is not common to say "this is" and then the name to introduce a person. Instead, we say "he is" or "she is," and then the person's name or relationship to the person introducing them. For this next slide, remember that he is, she is, it is, and you are formal all use the same form of the verb. Do your best to say, "This is my sister." You are literally saying, "She is my sister."
She is my sister. Okay. Ella es mi hermana.
Ella es mi hermana.
Up for a challenge? How would you say, "My sister speaks a little bit of English"?
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Here's how you would say, brother.
Hermano.
Hermano.
Let's see if you can say, brother.
Hermano.
Hermano.
Now, how do you think you would say, my brother?
Mi hermano.
Mi hermano.
Here's how to say, husband.
Esposo.
Esposo.
Let's hear that again.
Esposo.
Esposo.
Do you remember how to say, husband?
Esposo.
Esposo.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, my husband.
Mi esposo.
Mi esposo.
Based on what you've seen so far, how do you think you would say, this is my husband? Literally, you're saying, he is my husband.
Él. Él es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Do you remember how to say, my sister speaks a little bit of English?
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
How do you say, this is my husband?
Él es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say, he's not my brother, he's my husband?
Él no. Él no. Él es mi hermano. Él es mi esposo.
Él no es mi hermano.
Okay.
Es mi esposo.
Okay. Él no es. He no is. Él no es mi hermano. Él no es mi hermano. Él no es mi hermano. He not is mi hermano. Es mi esposo. Es mi esposo.
Do you remember how to say, my sister speaks a little bit of English?
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de
I forgot
inglés.
habla. Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés. That's what happens when you close your eyes.
How do you say, this is my husband?
Él es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Now, how do you say, he's not my brother, he's my husband?
Él no es mi esposo. Es mi. No, él no es mi hermano. Él es mi esposo.
Él no es mi
Es mi
hermano.
esposo.
Es mi esposo.
Él no es mi hermano. Es mi esposo. I feel like it's missing something. Es mi esposo. He's my husband, but es, oh my goodness, I feel like it's missing because es is also used as an article, right? Or subject. I know it's used as a a pronoun, but it's also used as an article. That's what's throwing me off.
If
Hermano.
brother is
Hermana.
sister in the feminine, what will wife be?
If hermano, brother is hermana. Oh, esposa.
What is the proper way to say wife?
Esposa.
Esposa.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say my wife.
Mi esposa.
Mi esposa.
Based on what you already know, how would you say, she is my wife?
Ella es mi esposa.
Ella es mi esposa.
Do you remember how to say, my sister speaks a little bit of English?
Sí, mi hermana habla un poco de es inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
Mi hermana habla un poco de inglés.
How do you say, this is my husband?
Es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Now, how do you say, he's not my brother, he's my husband?
Es no. Él Él no es, él no es mi hermano, es mi esposo, lo siento, esposo.
Él no es mi hermano. Es mi esposo.
Nice. Now practice saying, she is my wife.
Ella es mi esposa.
Ella es mi esposa.
Based on what you've learned so far, you can figure out how to say, my husband speaks Italian.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
How do you say, this is my husband?
Él es mi esposo.
Él es mi esposo.
Now, how do you say, he's not my brother, he's my husband?
Él no es mi hermano, es mi esposo.
Él no es mi hermano. Es mi esposo.
Él no es mi hermano, es mi esposo.
Nice. Now practice saying, she is my wife.
Ella es mi esposa.
Ella es mi esposa.
Try to say, my husband speaks Italian.
Mi esposo habla, habla español, italiano.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, she is my sister, and her name is Guadalupe.
Ella es mi hermana se llama es Guadalupe.
Ella es mi hermana y se llama Guadalupe.
Se llama Guadalupe.
Now, let's learn how to say, friends.
Amigos.
Listen closely one more time.
Amigos.
Amigos.
Let's hear you say, friends.
Amigos.
What is the proper way to say, my friends?
Mis amigos.
Mis amigos.
Did you say,
Mi amigos. Mi
my has to agree in number with the noun
amigos.
friends. So the correct answer is the plural form,
Mis amigos.
It was literally like saying mine friends.
based on what you've learned so far. You can figure out how to say, they are my friends.
Ellos son mis amigos.
Ellos son mis amigos.
When you meet new people, you should always remember to introduce everyone to each other. Just as in English, this is considered the polite thing to do. Now, how do you say, he's not my brother, he's my husband?
Él no es mi hermano, es mi esposo.
Él no es mi hermano. Es mi esposo.
Nice. Now practice saying, she is my wife.
Ella es mi esposa.
Ella es mi esposa.
Try to say, my husband speaks Italian.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Mi esposo habla italiano.
Nice. Now practice saying, they are my friends.
Ellos son mis amigos.
Ellos son mis amigos.
Ellos son mis amigos.
Let's see if you can say, brother.
Hermano.
Hermano.
Okay, now try to say, my brother.
Mi hermano.
Mi hermano.
Do you remember how to say, husband?
Esposo.
Esposo.
Now, how do you say, wife?
Esposa.
Esposa.
Nice. Now practice saying, she is my sister, and her name is Guadalupe.
Ella es mi hermana y se llama es Guadalupe. Y se llama Guadalupe.
Ella es mi hermana y se llama Guadalupe.
Let's hear you say, friends.
Amigos.
Amigos.
Now, how do you say, my friends?
Mis amigos.
mis amigos.
All right, y'all. We're going to do one more and we're going to take a break.
When speaking to a male in a formal setting, say,
Es un gusto conocerlo.
Es
which
un gusto
means,
conocerlo.
it's nice to meet you. You are literally saying, it is a pleasure to meet you.
To me, conocer.
Listen carefully.
Conocer.
Means to meet, to know. Let's hear that one more time.
Conocer.
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 Can be both to meet or to know. But don't worry, you will know which meaning is being used by the context of the conversation. Let's see if you can say to meet, to know.
Conocer.
Conocer.
Here's something new. When you're speaking to a man in a formal situation, say
Conocerlo.
to mean to meet you.
Conocerlo.
When you're in a formal setting, how do you say to meet you to a male?
Conocerlo.
Conocerlo.
Let's see if you can say to meet, to know.
Conocer.
Conocer.
When you're in a formal setting, how do you say to meet you to a male?
Conocerlo.
Conocerlo.
Here's how you would say he, she, it is for permanent states of being.
Es.
Es.
Here's how you would say a pleasure.
Un gusto.
Un gusto.
How do you say a pleasure?
Un gusto.
Un gusto.
Let's see if you can say to meet, to know.
Conocer.
Conocer.
When you're in a formal setting, how do you say to meet you to a male?
Conocerlo.
Conocerlo.
How do you say a pleasure?
Gusto. Gusto.
Un gusto.
Un gusto.
How do you say it's nice to meet you? When speaking to a man in a formal setting, you are literally saying, it is a pleasure to meet you.
Okay. Es un gusto serlo. Gusto serlo.
Es un gusto conocerlo.
Hacer un serlo. Es un gusto conocerlo.
You may also hear people say,
Es un placer conocerlo.
good job so far. You may also hear people say,
Es un placer conocerlo. Placer.
literally means pleasure. So you can use either
Es un gusto conocerlo.
or.
Es un placer conocerlo.
Both phrases have the same meaning. Good job so far. Now, can you figure out how to say, pleasure to meet you, to a man in a formal situation?
Conocerlo.
Gusto conocerlo.
Gusto conocerlo.
Speaking formally to a woman, the way you would say, to meet you, is
Conocerla.
Conocerla.
in a formal situation. How would you say to a woman, to meet you?
Conocerla.
Conocerla.
Based on what you've learned so far, try to say, it's nice to meet you, to a woman in a formal situation.
Gusto conocerla.
Es un gusto conocerla.
Es un gusto conocerla.
Listen to the informal way to say, to meet you.
Conocerte.
Conocerte.
What's the casual way to say, to meet you?
Conocerte.
Conocerte.
What do you think would be the way to say, it's nice to meet you, to someone in an informal situation?
Es un gusto conocerte.
Es un gusto conocerte.
Es un gusto conocerte.
Now, how do you say, Likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
What's the way to say, see you later?
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Here's one. Can you figure out how to say, it's nice to meet you, see you later, to a man in a formal setting?
Es un gusto conocerlo. Hasta luego.
Es un gusto conocerlo. Hasta luego.
In a casual setting, how do you say, it's nice to meet you?
Es un gusto casual. Es un gusto conocerte.
Es un gusto conocerte.
When speaking to a man in a formal setting, how do you say, it's nice to meet you, see you later?
Es un gusto conocerlo. Hasta luego.
Es un gusto conocerlo. Hasta luego.
Es un gusto conocerlo. Hasta luego.
When you're in a formal setting, how do you say, pleasure to meet you, to a male?
Un gusto conocerlo.
Gusto conocerlo.
In a formal situation, how would you say to a woman, to meet you?
Conocerla.
Conocerla.
In a formal situation, how would you say to a woman, it's nice to meet you?
Es un gusto conocerla.
Es un gusto conocerla.
What's the casual way to say, to meet you?
Conocerte.
Conocerte.
All right, y'all. I really don't feel good. So we're going to finish up. I wanted to finish tonight, but we're going to finish up tomorrow. Before we do chapter 4, we want to finish the review of 5, 6, and 7. Going to go over. I think we're not going to do the vocabulary. We're not going to do the vocabulary because we did it anyway, right? Last week, or this week. They just passed last week. But we're gonna redo the review where we read and then the one where we listen. Escucha y lee. Okay, lean, escuchan. And then we're gonna move on to finish chapter 4 because we was doing chapter 4 anyway, I think. So we're just gonna do that again. Do chapter 4 again. And then I think, let me see. After those, chapter 4. We're going to do chapter 4. How many is in chapter 4? 11. So chapter 4, we're going to take another 2 weeks. So we're going to do chapter 4. We're going to take the next 2 weeks to do chapter 4. So we got time.
What's this, Mom?
Hola.
Can I show you something?
Sure.
Please?
Oh, wow. Oh, where'd you learn that?
The quiz told me that.
Oh.
And I can do this too.
Oh my. You learned that from gymnastics?
Yeah.
Good job. All right, going upstairs. I'll be right there, okay?
I need some tea.
I got it right now. But you gotta give me a second. I'll call you down, okay?
Mhm.
Go ahead and give me 3 minutes.
Can I stay down? Can I stay down here for a bit?
Sure, if you can be quiet. Okay, thank you, my love. All right. All right, guys. I'm rolling out. Me and my baby gotta drink some tea. I'm just gonna put in a wonderful night. Okay? Have a wonderful night, you guys. I will see you tomorrow morning and we will finish up chapter 3, do chapter 4, and we'll be on our way. Say bye.
Bye.
All right. Let me find.